I swiped right on the man you dream of finding. He was handsome, clever, and had a warmth that radiated through the screen. We planned to meet under the city lights for our first date, but the man who walked up to my table was a total stranger. In that moment, I realized this wasn't just going to be a bad date. I was in a trap. This is a story about the terrifying space between our digital lives and reality, and how easily trust can be turned into a weapon. When you're tricked like that, the betrayal is profound. It leaves you feeling ashamed, terrified, and questioning if you can ever trust your own judgment again. This is my story. Like most stories about modern love, mine began on a Tuesday with the mindless scroll. I was swiping my way through a digital ocean of gym selfies and empty bios, fresh off a breakup and trying to feel something again. In the gay dating world, you learn to manage your expectations. It's a strange and often disappointing landscape, but you hold out hope for that one elusive spark. And then, I saw him. Leo. His profile was a work of art, almost unnervingly perfect. The main photo was a candid shot, him laughing with his head thrown back, a halo of autumn leaves around him. He had eyes that crinkled when he smiled, and a quiet confidence that felt leagues away from the usual online posturing. His bio was sharp and witty, an architect who loved hiking, pottery, and an obscure indie film I was obsessed with. It felt like the universe had finally looked out for me, delivering my soulmate through a mess of algorithms and glass. I swiped right, and a jolt went through me that I hadn't felt in years. A few minutes later, the notification, "You matched with Leo." He messaged first, "I see you're a fan of the Midnight Orchestra." I thought I was the only one, and we were off. The conversation flowed like water. We talked for hours that first night, and the sight of those 3 little dots popping up on my screen became the highlight of my day. He was everything his profile promised: intelligent, empathetic, and incredibly easy to talk to. We quickly moved to texting, and our days became a constant, comforting dialogue of good morning messages, inside jokes, and late-night conversations that drifted into sleep. He told me about his dream of designing a sustainable building, about his last trip to Japan, about his family. I found myself opening up in return, sharing things I hadn't with anyone else. I wasn't just building a connection. I was falling for a collage of handsome photos and dazzling words. The hope was intoxicating, and it blinded me to everything else. My friends saw his picture, and they were happy for me. But my best friend, the resident skeptic, would always ask, "Have you video chatted yet?" I'd brush it off, convinced that our connection was too real to be fake. I didn't know it then, but I was living in the first chapter of a cautionary tale. The weeks that followed were a blur of digital romance. We graduated from texting to phone calls, and hearing his voice for the first time, deep and reassuring, only solidified the fantasy. He had a laugh that made me feel like the wittiest person alive. We'd talk for hours, and he remembered every little detail, making me feel seen in a way I hadn't in forever. But looking back, this is where tiny fractures started to appear in the perfect facade. They were so small, so easily explained away, that I chose to ignore them. The video calls were the first major issue. Every time I suggested it, there was a perfectly plausible excuse. My front camera is shattered. 1 week. My apartment's a disaster zone. I'm too embarrassed. The next. I thought it was quirky, maybe a little insecure. He was so apologetic, he'd send a new, impossibly perfect photo, and my doubts would dissolve. Then I noticed the photos themselves. They were all pristine, solo shots. No friends, no family, not even a blurry group photo in the background. They looked like they'd been pulled from a magazine. When I gently questioned it, he said he was a private person who didn't post others without permission. It sounded respectable, so I let it go. There were other things too. Tiny inconsistencies in his stories. He once mentioned growing up in Oregon, then a week later talked about a childhood in Vermont. He laughed it off, saying his family moved so much he got the details confused. It seemed plausible enough. Despite these flickers of doubt, I was all in. For many in the gay community, these apps are a lifeline, a primary way to find connection, and that deep-seated desire can make you incredibly vulnerable. I wanted to believe in Leo, so when he finally asked to meet, I was ecstatic. We chose a trendy downtown bar for Friday night. My excitement was a tidal wave, washing away any remaining sliver of doubt. This was it, the culmination of a month of intense, emotional investment. I spent the day buzzing with nervous energy, imagining what it would feel like to finally see that smile in person. As I was leaving, I texted him, "I can't wait to finally see you." His reply was instant. "You have no idea. This is going to be a night to remember." He was right. It was a night I'd never forget, for all the wrong reasons. The bar was warm and buzzing, filled with the murmur of conversations and the clinking of glasses. I snagged a table by the window, my leg bouncing with a nervous energy I couldn't control. I checked my reflection in my phone's dark screen for the 10th time and pulled up his profile to see his face one last time. That handsome, kind face. 20 minutes passed. The initial excitement began to curdle into the familiar fear of being stood up. I sent a text, "Hey, I'm here." At a table by the window, the reply came, "On my way. Traffic is a nightmare. Be there in 5. Another 10 minutes crawled by. I was about to give up when a man started walking toward my table. My first thought was that he was lost, maybe looking for the restroom. He wore a shiny puffer jacket that seemed out of place in the warm bar. He was shorter than Leo's profile said, his build completely different. His face. It wasn't the one I had spent a month memorizing. It wasn't even close. He stopped directly in front of me, a nervous smile playing on his lips. "Alex?" he asked. My brain stalled. I just stared, trying to force the pixels on my phone to align with the person standing before me. The man from the photos was tall and lean, with charming look and very attractive. This man was shorter, heavier, and very different. There was zero resemblance. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" I managed to say. His smile faltered. "It's me. It's Leo." The words didn't just land, they detonated. The blood drained from my face. I looked from my phone screen, where the perfect Leo was still smiling, back to the stranger. It was all a lie. The pictures, the connection, the man I was falling for. He didn't exist. A wave of nausea and profound humiliation washed over me. This was it. The moment every online dater dreads. "You're not Leo," I said, my voice dangerously flat. He looked away, shifting his weight. "The pictures? They're old. From a few years ago. I was going to tell you. But this wasn't an old photo. This wasn't a few extra pounds. This was a different human being." The sheer scale of the deception was breathtaking. A cold dread crept up my spine. This wasn't just a lie. It was a calculated, deliberate fraud. This was the exact moment, the quiet whisper of my intuition, which I had been shushing for weeks, turned into a blood-curdling scream. I'd ignored it, and now I was face to face with the consequences. If you've ever felt that gut-deep instinct that something is terrifyingly wrong, hit that subscribe button, because you know how vital it is to learn to trust it. My mind was a whirlwind of shock, embarrassment, and a hot, rising anger. I felt like a complete fool. Every intimate conversation, every late-night call, replayed in my head, now curdled and grotesque. Why? It was the only word I could force out. Why do this? He looked down, a flicker of shame in his eyes. "I didn't think you'd talk to me if you saw the real me," he mumbled. Leo's profile. It works. His reasoning didn't offer comfort. It felt like a violation. I wasn't a person to him. I was a target. He used someone else's face as a mask to get the validation he craved. People who catfish are often driven by deep insecurity, but knowing that doesn't lessen the emotional damage. So all of it was a lie. I pushed, my voice trembling with rage. "No, the conversations. That was me," he insisted, looking up with pleading eyes. Please, just give me a chance. One drink. But trust doesn't just crack, it shatters. And it was shattered. How could I believe anything he said now? The entire foundation was a fraud. The cozy bar suddenly felt like a cage, tight and suffocating. The man before me was no longer just a liar. He was a stranger, and a potentially unstable one. Then his demeanor shifted. He leaned forward, the friendly facade cracking, and reached across the table to grab my hand. "Don't go," he said, his voice dropping to a low, desperate tone. "I know things about you, Alex. I know where you work. I know you walk your dog in the park on Elm Street." Ice shot through my veins. This wasn't desperation anymore. It was a threat. He was weaponizing the details I had trusted him with, turning my own life into leverage to keep me there. This had escalated from catfishing into something far more dangerous. I snatched my hand back. Standing so fast, the chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Don't you ever contact me again," I said, my voice low and firm, betraying none of the terror I felt. I turned and walked, practically ran out of the bar, not daring to look back. Every shadow on the street felt like a threat. My hands were shaking so violently, I could barely get the key in my car's ignition. The second I was inside, I locked the doors and finally gasped for air, a sob tearing from my chest. I felt humiliated for being tricked, and terrified by how quickly the dream had become a nightmare. The following days were heavy with anxiety. I blocked his number, his fake profiles, everything. My friends were my rock, but the emotional toll was immense. The betrayal burrowed deep, leaving me with trust issues that extended far beyond dating apps. It made me question my own judgment. How could I have been so blind? Looking back, the signs were textbook. The refusal to video chat, the flawless photos, the inconsistent stories. I had been so desperate for the fantasy to be real that I had willingly ignored the reality. This experience forced me to stare into the dark side of online connection. Deception is disturbingly common. Some people tell small lies, but others construct entire fake identities. Sometimes for romance scams that cause devastating emotional and financial ruin. While I didn't lose money, the emotional cost was staggering. I had to learn that being vulnerable isn't a flaw. The desire for connection had made me a target, but the blame for the deception was his, and his alone. Slowly, I began to heal. The fear and anger eventually cooled into a hard-earned caution. I didn't let it kill my hope, but it fundamentally changed how I navigate the digital world. I had to learn to trust my own instincts again. It meant asking hard questions and putting my safety above a potential match. The real lesson wasn't just about spotting a catfish. It was about learning to listen to that internal alarm bell when it rings. My story had a terrifying end, but I was lucky to walk away. The most important takeaway for me, and for anyone navigating the online world, is to be vigilant without becoming cynical. It's a difficult balance. Dating platforms are adding identity verification features, but no system is foolproof. So what can you do? First, verification is not optional. Insist on a live video call before you become emotionally invested. If they consistently make excuses, that is your answer. Second, do a reverse image search on their pictures. It can quickly reveal if the photos are stolen from someone else. Third, when you meet, always choose a public place and tell a friend your plan. And finally, and most importantly, trust your gut. If something feels off, it is. Your safety is more important than anyone's feelings, especially as strangers. What are your stories from the world of online dating? Share your experiences in the comments. The good, the bad, and the unbelievable. We've all felt the sting of trust broken, but here we can share and heal together. Let's build a community that looks out for each other. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more. The next episode is on the way.
Why do I end up like this? Waiting by the phone like you'll call me again. I've been down low ever since, and I don't know how long it's been. Days pass by like it's hours. Sweet memories turning sour. And yeah, I said that I'd forget all these memories in my head.